Okay, let's go ahead and start animating. Actually, before we do, I wanted to show you one more thing about the interface here. My range right now is set to 21 frames. This is the playback range. This inner one means it starts on frame 1, goes to frame 21. I'm animating at 30 frames per second. And I can go and change this by going here and entering a number, which is fine. But a lot of times that seems a little cumbersome, and you don't necessarily know exactly which number you want, and just kind of breaks the flow of things. So I wanted to show you this little doodad here. This is called the range slider, and it's a very useful tool we'll probably be using a lot in this class. So instead of entering a number manually, what I can do is go ahead and grab this rightmost box and scale it down, just drag it down until I hit the playback range that I want, and I'm good to go. And then if I take this playback range slider and move it to the right, it actually shows me the whole animation range. So yeah, it's an interesting tool. But right now it's set from 1 to 30, and so sure enough I've got 1 to 30, and that's my playback range. So to animate, we have to start setting keys, because without keyframes we don't have any animation. So what I'm going to show you first of all is the general keyboard shortcut for setting a key. The issue with this is it sets keys for all of the keyable attributes for an object. Sometimes you want that, sometimes you don't. So I'll show you a couple of other ways later on, but I'll start you off with just the good old-fashioned S shortcut. So I move my ball up to where I want to start the animation. Hit S, S as in snake. Hit it there, and then if you go down to the time slider, you'll see you now have a red line here, which is the symbol for a key. So we've got a keyframe set there. Now I'm going to go ahead and scrub up to frame 15, come down here, hit the ground, make sure that I double check that the ball is actually hitting the ground here. And sure enough. And you can do a quick jump to the side here by hitting this little box up here. Sometimes that's kind of fun. So that looks pretty good. And I could hit S, as in snake again, or I could hit Shift W. And remember, W is the move tool, and so the QWERTY, that corresponds to the QWERTY keys. And so Shift W sets a key, but only for the move attribute. It doesn't set keys for rotation and scale. Alright. So now I've got 2 keys, and so I have an animation. Alright, now I want to set my final key up here for the bounce back up. And I'll show you a really common animation mistake. So I'll go here to frame 30 and I'll move the ball back up here. And so now when I go to play this back, it jumps back and it just ignores the move that I just made. Why did I do that? Because there was no keyframe set. So that's a really easy mistake to make, and one way you can get around it is, instead of hitting S and Shift all the time, is just to go over here and turn on auto keying. So down here there's a little skeleton key, and that way when I turn on auto keying, this turns red, and now when I go over to frame 30 and make my move up here, it automatically sets a key for me, and so it remembers all those moves that I make, and that's usually a good thing. So that's auto keying. And then to finish this off, now by default auto keying sets keys for all of my attributes up here, and sometimes I don't want that. Let me show you another workaround. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit undo a few times, Command Z, until I get rid of that key on frame 30. Now what I'm going to do is go back over here with my ball selected and select these attributes here in the channel box, and then right click on them and say lock selected. And now when I turn my auto keying on and go back and set a key here, it won't set keys for all of these boxes that I don't need checked. So to finish this off, I'm going to make sure that my final frame is exactly the same as my first frame. So I'll just go, I could do this in the graph editor, I can do this a bunch of different ways, but for right now I'm just going to go to frame 1, look over in the channel box, and we're really only animating the translate Y values. Y is the green arrow, so straight up and down. And it's 52.707. Go back over here. 52.707. Return. And now we've got a cycle, so when I go to play this back, we have a full animation cycle. In the next video, we'll get into editing those curves in the graph editor.